guess I got introduced to hip hop like most of the hits of my generation uh, through either songs like Rapper's Delight or movies like Beat Street, Wild Style, or Breakdance. In terms of our first encounter, or maybe the odd um, music video, whether it was Malcolm McLaren's Buffalo Girls, where you actually saw b-boying and b-girling for the first time. Uh, yeah, that just in terms of being exposed to it. Do you know what I mean? But I mean, there's even a history dating back to slavery in terms of kind of cultural sharings, if you will, between parts of Africa, the Caribbean, Black America, type of thing. You know what I mean? That kind of you could say forms part of the history of hip hop as well.
And once exposed to it, what inspired you, or what drove you to make it part of your life?
I think for a lot of marginalized young people all over the world, especially the alienated or stuff like that, hip hop became one of the ways to connect, right, with the rest of the world, and to form some kind of community based on whether it's shared histories of marginalization, alienation, oppression, or whatever, but also the kind of aesthetics related to hip hop kind of spoke to that time, that harsh vibe, straight up in your face, challenging stuff, you know, but stylistically being so funky and dope, you know what I mean? Yeah.
How did it affect the community that you were within? Did it mobilize this sort of conscious movement forward?
I think for the first generation, the first phase of hip hop in South Africa, it wasn't even a hip hop community against apartheid. I think it was imagining and forming a hip hop community, you know, locally and across national boundaries as well. Do you know what I mean? Connecting what lighties from the South Bronx or in the UK, etc., going through certain vibes, and also locally as well. You know, lighties from Elsie's River, connecting with lighties from Mitchell's Plain and Bonteheuwel and other parts of Cape Town that were geographically positioned along kind of racial and ethnic lines and stuff like that. To think of hip hop's involvement in some kind of anti-apartheid struggle, you know, the overwhelming majority of hip hop heads, you know, from the 80s, weren't connected really to the kind of mass movements that existed, whether it was the UDF, etc., etc. Sure, there were instances where we performed at either rallies or gigs, etc., events that had certain personalities say certain things, etc. But as a movement, it wasn't really connected to those kinds of mass democratic or anti-apartheid movements, which was kind of like a catch-22, a double-edged sword, right? Because on the one hand, we didn't have the kind of analysis that's maybe necessary to read the political terrain at the time, but at the same time, we weren't co-opted when a lot of those structures and collectives were demobilized, right? So the kinds of hip-hop activism that happened wasn't so much necessarily around mobilizing lighties to be a part of whatever. You know, it was about trying to do whatever we could as young people who consider themselves to be hip-hop heads, you know what I mean? To be able to just hold on to keep a spark in our fucking eyes alive. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Apartheid was so spirit-numbing, that for me, more so than hip hop heads writing lyrics against the apartheid regime and having albums banned like POC did for the stuff that they said, etc., was that you had all these practices and things that young people were doing that actually just kept the humanity alive, that just kept that geest, that vibe
What
alive
were
for me.
some of those things on a practical level that you were doing?
I mean, there were different kinds of things. Whether it was an attempt to have some kind of formal structure, organization like the African hip hop movement, to kind of run X amount of programs, workshops, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that to varying degrees. Successes in one area and kind of didn't really work in other instances.